It wouldn't be a Let's Talk Broncos broadcast without a technical difficulty. This time, I'm taking ownership of this one. Bree Maestas, Zach Seegers, Joey Richards. They're in different positions today. I'm going to switch them over. How are you guys doing this fine Wednesday afternoon, evening?
I'm doing amazing. I'm going to Chicago tomorrow, so that's fun. I'm gonna have fun down there. Never been. Heard it's tremendous. We got a schedule release today. We had a lot of people guessing and like trying to put it together like it's a puzzle throughout the week, which was fun to follow as well. Yeah, no, I'm doing good. How are you, Zach?
I'm doing well. Yeah, we get to talk about the schedule. Our local nightmare, it's not a national nightmare, but our local nightmare is flipped a little. They can breathe a little easier now. Hopefully that carries over into tomorrow night with the Nuggets Wolves series. It sucks that the Avs are seemingly going to just slide on out of the playoffs, but at least we got one team looking like a serious competitor, so that's fun. Enjoying
the Nugs look nasty. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. But I want to also say, because we did not voluntarily distribute the Rockies into the fiery volcano, that the Avs are probably going to have a rough go at it tonight, since the Rockies are on somewhat of a streak. But that's about all the baseball talk you're going to get out of me. But quickly, before we talk about Nuggets, Joey, Chicago dogs. What's your preferred hot dog condiments?
Oh my God, I don't know. I haven't really explored deep with the condiments there. I haven't gone
Are you a ketchup
crazy with
dude?
the condiments.
You strike me as a ketchup guy.
Ketchup, maybe mustard. I don't mind mustard type situation. But since I'm in Chicago, I might need to go explore, get an idea of what's out there, and maybe come home with a different idea of how a hot dog should be eaten.
I'm not going to highlight your comment, Kathy, but if you want to see why Kathy made me laugh so hard, go ahead and jump on over to our YouTube comments. Search Let's Talk Broncos. We are live right now. We're going to react to this schedule. But Zach, you also strike me as a ketchup guy.
Zach's definitely a ketchup guy.
Wrong. Mustard all day. Give me some mustard. Give me some onions. All the good stuff. I don't know.
Zach's the ketchup and mayo guy.
This is slander. This is wild slander. I actually can't stand mayo. Mayo's a deal breaker for me. I despise it.
Zach's a Thousand Island sauce type guy to me.
I can't do a Thousand Island either. I'm picking on my condiments. There's a lot of condiments I don't fuck with.
Listen, Zach, I'm not telling you which condiments you actually use. I'm telling you the perception you give me a Thousand Island sauce vibes.
Oh. Zach's pounding the table for more Thousand Island.
You know what, Jody? You give me like egg salad.
I already used all the good sauces. What did you say?
Egg salad vibes.
We were talking about condiments. You just threw out a whole dish.
Who's the
That's
NFL
like a condiment.
comp?
No, it's like a condiment.
Who's the NFL comp to egg salad? To an egg salad sandwich?
Mason Rudolph.
Wait. We need to have this discussion. How in the world is that a condiment?
It's like a schmear. It's like a schmear.
Because think about it. Mayonnaise and aioli is just egg yolks and oil, and egg salad sandwich is just egg yolks and the egg white and some mustard. A schmear. You ever had an egg salad bagel? Amazing. Good stuff. I vote highly on it.
Exactly. The answer is no. I'll leave the egg salad to you and Zach over
there. Zach, are you offended by tartar sauce?
I'm okay with it in the right settings, but like in Colorado, I so rarely have it. But if I'm in Florida or whatever and eating the right foods for it, occasionally, yeah.
Are you saying you can't get good fish and chips here in Colorado?
It's exactly what I'm saying, and I will stand. I will stand on it. I will stand on it.
Oh my God, this is hilarious. Rock is saying that food comps time. That's obviously thanks to our dear friend Cal, who said tartar sauce is gross. I cannot believe you all. Rock wants to know if the schedule can be food comps. Let's go ahead and move into it. And I want you to food comp the preseason games. Broncos 2024 preseason schedule, week 1 at the Colts on Sunday, August 11th. week 2 Packers and week 3 Cardinals. That's 2 home preseason games. Guys, if you had to package this up into a quick fast food stop, I would say like you're grabbing pickles and a case of beef jerky and maybe a Monster energy drink. What are the food comps for this preseason rundown? Colts, Packers, Cardinals, those last 2 games are here in Denver.
Listen, it doesn't matter who we're playing in the preseason. It's like a McChicken. Like we're just in and out at the dollar, and I don't really even want to pay attention to it all that much. That's
Yeah.
it does me not that much good. I'm going fast food all day. Maybe it's like a spicy McChicken or whatever.
Yeah, I think Joey is definitely on the right line here. Some sort of empty calories. I mean, that's what the preseason is. I think it'll be a little more meaningful this time around, just because you're going to, or maybe meaningful is not even the right word, but exciting or filling, maybe. Just because you're going to get to see like Bo Nix play like not real snaps, but some sort of live snaps in a Broncos uniform. Some people are going to go out to training camp and see like some version of it, but as fake as preseason football is, training camp football is even faker. So I don't know. It'll be, I think, exciting to see like the new era of the Broncos get underway. That's always fun when you have a young quarterback. No matter whether or not Bo Nix pans out, like part of the fun of a rookie quarterback is the hope that comes with it. And that's, that'll be an element of the preseason. So that I don't know. Outside of that, it's a preseason. I don't know what to take from, like, I don't know how playing the Colts in the preseason is any different than playing the Cowboys.
Do you have hope for Bo Nix, Zach? Is that what I'm getting here on the Let's Talk Broncos podcast this Wednesday?
I mean, I always have had a hope for him. He wouldn't be my pick at that spot. I do have some very real concerns about him, but there's certainly hope there. I think there's more hope with Bo Nix than there was for the Denver Nuggets down 0-2. I think it's very possible he is like a strong NFL starter. I think I'd be very surprised if he like flames out of the NFL. I think worst case scenario, he'll be like a longtime NFL backup. And I think there's a good chance like he starts the entirety. If I had to bet on Bo Nix, I think he starts 80+% of that rookie contract, and where it gets a little hairy is around like re-signing him. I think we're like 3-4 years away from some sticky conversations in Denver about like, oh, is Bo Nix worth $70 million a year, or whatever the going rate is at that point in time.
Okay.
Flying Dragon Film says preseason is like Jack in the Box tacos at 3 a.m. I'll eat it if I have to. Flying Dragon Films, you win this round. That's not only hilarious, but it's absolutely appropriate. I don't remember the last time I've had Jack in the Box, but I'm old and I get what do you call it? Indigestion.
Last time you had E. coli.
The last time on the very long list of times that I've had E. coli. You're right. I'm getting old. I can't eat certain things. I don't have the strong stomach that I used to have. And
you guys want to know why Bree misses? It's E. coli. I mean, every week we get a text for Bree and we're like, E. coli again?
It's diverticulitis. Thank you very much.
Jack in the Box tacos.
We told you how many times. Also, every time I eat a hot dog, which isn't that frequent, but I get ill. I'm too sensitive for this world. The Broncos 2024 preseason schedule. Give me one storyline, just one of you, that you think will pop up during that time. You got any QB battles from the other teams we've got to talk about?
I don't know, Zach. What do you think?
Wait, which teams are these? The preseason teams?
Just the preseason teams. Is there's a storyline we should be geared up for?
It's Colts, it's Cardinals, it's Packers. I think what's interesting there, I'm curious to see what Marvin Harrison Jr. looks like. I mean, I think that'll be a fun element in that game. Anthony Richardson was so exciting with what little we saw of him last year. I think it's easy to forget about him because he played so little last year, but I mean, most athletic quarterback prospect ever. And it looked like he had a really great feel for the NFL game for, how little college football he played. I think that's a really exciting element of that. game. And then I think that the Packers defense might be an interesting watch. Bringing up a guy from the college ranks, they're kind of zagging while the rest of the league is zigging. As any listener to this podcast, I'm sure, has heard, over the last several years, the NFL has swung hard towards the Fangio model and like the Saleh model of like these two high defenses. And the Packers are kind of bucking that trend and going with a guy that's very notoriously a single high defensive coordinator. So I think that'll be, again, we probably won't get that many real looks in the preseason though, but I'd say that's what's interesting to me out of those preseason matchups, like with the opponents.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with you. I want to see Anthony Richardson. It's even more. I want to see the guy on the other team than the Broncos, really, for that preseason game 1. I want to see Anthony Richardson, man. What an exciting football player Anthony Richardson is. Whether it's good or bad, I know Anthony Richardson's going to be a ton of fun out there. And then you look at the receivers now: Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, who they drafted last year, A.D. Mitchell, who they drafted this year. They still have Alec Pierce. Their wide receivers should be loaded too. That's gonna be fun to just look at their team and be like, how good can this end up being here? A lot of young offensive talent there in Indianapolis.
Awesome. Thank you guys for answering that question. We'll move on here to the main schedule, the main meat of the conversation. But first and foremost, I want to thank everybody who participated in the hashtag Let's Make Zach Cry. It was a tremendous success. I loved seeing those comments pour through. If you want to go over on Twitter, if you have a Twitter account, go ahead and start lighting up the timeline with that hashtag as well, so we can get some run on that. We are, of course, in the pursuit of 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. But we're also working over on Twitter. And if you feel so obliged, go ahead and retweet the podcast. Primarily, I don't know, Zach, if you felt like you really wanted to.
I knew immediately that was out of me. Yeah, I'll do that right now. I need to get on that. I will also use this really quick while we're on the subject. I did a horrible job shouting out my contest last job, so we're going to clean that up a little bit. Okay, here we go. I've come up with cleaner rules for the Zach Seegers giveaway. Okay, over these this is week 1. We're looking at a 3-week period. Okay, this is week 1. Next week will be week 2. Week after that is week 3. Okay. On our Monday, Wednesday streams, our main LTB shows, the Mario can get the hell out of here. Joey on Thursdays can get the hell out of here. All right. On our Monday, Wednesday shows. All right. Comment on them. Only 1 comment per video will count. If you want to comment more than that and help us out even more, fantastic. We'd love it. But comment on the video. That'll give you, that's like getting 1 raffle ticket or whatever for a chance to win. I'm going to do a random number generator. I'll go through the comments of those videos. I'll get 1 from every user. I'll do a random number generator to randomly select the comment. You guys don't have to worry about this. I can tell I've lost Joe.
Is this to get out of a hot chip? I thought you were eating a hot chip. What happened?
That's not the giveaway. That's like part of the challenge. That's an entirely like it's part of it.
Multiple challenges going on. It's a lot.
Because you added the chip thing, Joey. You added the chip. You're the reason.
I wasn't even made aware of this other situation going on. Continue.
You were right before you threw out the chip idea.
We don't know what
video. It's on camera.
Listen, just like the videos, make Zach eat a hot chip. We just threw up the hashtag. What is it again?
Now that's the other thing. If we hit 2,000 subscribers, if we hit 2,000 subscribers in that span, 2 things will happen. 1, I will eat a hot chip. That's done right there. That one's happening. 2, if you comment, we're not boofing a hot chip. There's a 0% chance of that out. 2. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you said were. No. Keep the hot chip over there. This is you he's talking about. Address.
No, we're doing the hot chip one.
We're not doing anything. Bree and I are going to your watch.
If you comment on one of our main streams over these next 3 weeks, you will be entered for a chance to win either a Broncos jersey. If you are uninterested in any of the new Broncos jerseys, fair play. It'll be a video game instead, like Madden 25 or EA College Football 25. So comment on the videos and you'll have a chance to win. And you'll make me probably eat a hot chip and suffer. So if you don't like my Russell Wilson takes or, whatever, punish me.
Oh, good job. Congratulations, everybody. Round of applause for Zach Seegers. Joey's face was killing me, and then Cal and Alex were killing me. So thank you for that random segment. That was fantastic. Enter for your choice of whether or not Zach Boof's a hot chip. Moving on.
No, that's not happening.
We've got the schedule release. Ladies and gentlemen, we knew Seattle was going to be week 1. It looks like week 2, I'm going to be able to boo as loud as humanly possible at Russell Wilson as he makes his triumphant return to Denver. And then you've got Tampa Bay. The Jets are an away game, which is absolutely shocking. Let's break this down in sort of bunches. I'm going to start with the first 4, which we already kind of knew we were anticipating. But let's talk about how it makes us feel. I like this run, but I also think there's a sneaky bit of hesitation here on why these matchups could be trickier than they first appear. Agree or disagree, Joey Richards?
Okay, quick observation. First thing I see in these 4 games, there are 2 rivals going on out of division rivals here. One being the Jets. I can't stand Nathaniel Hackett. Vance Joseph, if I can ask you of one thing this year, it's to have the most dominant performance against Nathaniel Hackett. Please, God, please. I want this week 4 Jets game to be Hackett's last game there in New York. That's what I want. And then also, I feel like we should boo so loud in the Steelers game. I know people are like, it wasn't Russ's fault. But getting him leaving wasn't his fault. And usually you don't boo players that didn't leave on their own. This is a situation where I don't care at all. We're booing loud. This is going to be a hell of a game right here, this Pittsburgh game. The fans need to be into this game right here, September 15th. I might even be there because the Broncos don't lose when I'm in the stadium. So, yeah, give me tickets.
So you want to buy those week 2 tickets is what you're telling me?
No, I'm hoping someone will give them to me. But anyway.
Yeah, I think on the don't boo him, it's not his fault thing. Like it 1,000% is his fault. Like, I mean, it's also like the Broncos' fault. There's plenty of blood on their hands too. But yeah, like Russell Wilson helped design the Nathaniel Hackett offense. Look at all the quotes from everyone involved with the 2022 Denver Broncos, whether that be George Payton, whether that be Nathaniel Hackett, whether it be Justin Allen, whether it be Russell Wilson. They all said the exact same thing, which was we pretty much asked Russell Wilson what he wanted the offense to look like and did that. Now, is it on Nathaniel Hackett that was his plan? Absolutely. Is it on Russell Wilson that his offensive game plan was, hey, let's lean really hard into all the things I suck at? 1,000%. 1,000%, because he wanted to be Peyton Manning, even though all of his weaknesses align with like Peyton Manning's strengths. It was a horrible plan, and he's incredibly responsible for it. He's also very responsible for, I think, the struggles last year. Like the fact that the Broncos completely collapsed down the stretch offensively, I think is so largely Russell Wilson's fault. I think everyone else on the offense combined isn't as responsible for that offensive collapse as Russell Wilson is down the stretch. And the rumors I have heard about what Russell Wilson was doing in that relationship with Sean Payton is it would have Broncos country livid. Like, absolutely, this guy was a very large contributing factor to the Broncos' struggles. And not only that, he's effectively been the nuclear bomb that has left Broncos country a desolate wasteland for the next 2 years. The reason the Broncos had to take the largest by a large sum, number 2 and number 3 combined, isn't as big as the dead cap hit the Broncos just absorbed. And the reason they had to do that was because Russell Wilson couldn't even be competent. The Lions just signed up willingly to pay Jared Goff $53 million a year. Russell Wilson was so bad, the Broncos couldn't even entertain that idea. Like, it is underrated, frankly, in Broncos country, how bad Russell Wilson was and how damaging he was to this franchise. If anyone no one has hurt the Broncos franchise more singularly than Russell Wilson. Who else are you booing? Who else?
No, I get it, dude. But my point here, I get it, but usually we don't boo the player. One second. Usually we don't boo the player that tried his hardest but just didn't get it done, and that's kind of what happened there with Russell Wilson. Like Carmelo Anthony, for example, is a player I understand everyone booing when they want to. It's because he forced his way out of Denver, and it was all of that type of stuff. But also, I ultimately agree with you. Let's boo the hell out of Russell Wilson, Brock.
I was going to say, how are you sticking up for this?
No, I want to boo the hell out of him, and I also want to figure out a way. Did the expert people that, I don't know, weren't they saying that counting down the clock actually hurt the Broncos, or because it gives the defense?
And it was
Can we do that when they come? Can we do the count snap down when Pittsburgh's on offense?
I think they absolutely should.
Fans can figure it out and be on time. They still cheer when the offense is on the field, so I don't know if they really understand that whole poignancy of getting to get their shit together. But maybe.
Yeah, I think they absolutely should throw them off. It seems like Russell Wilson was a big part of the play calling mix-up, so absolutely lean into that. Why not? And to your point, Joey, it's generally speaking, or I think it's really like a strong rule. Fans aren't gonna, boo the guy who, did everything in his power to try and make a situation work. And I don't think that this situation is going to be an outlier in that regard.
I just can't believe we're sitting around discussing the merits of whether or not Russell Wilson tried his hardest. I think I had other issues on whether or not he gave it a good old college go. But also, I still don't think that's the truth either, considering the shape in which he came into start his venture here in Denver. So let's rethink that conversation. But I want to jump into this next block of 4 games. This includes the first primetime of 2 primetime games. Raiders, Chargers, Saints, and Carolina Panthers. I cannot believe I get to watch the Carolina Panthers here in Colorado. I'm obviously joking. I do not care. However, that Raiders, Chargers, and Saints run will be an interesting one. The Saints game is a Thursday night football game. The Broncos only have 2 primetime games this year. And listen, I like it. I appreciate it. I respect the hell out of it because primetime has been a slog for the Denver Broncos for a little far too long. I was hoping for a little more 11 a.m. games, specifically here in Colorado, but it's just not happening. The 2 p.m. Will be a nice change of pace, though. It'll be warm. The sun will be out, and I will not be as grumpy as I am leaving. Mile High Chase has finally joined us. He said he was in the wrong stream, which is absolutely hilarious. All of us are on one today. We appreciate you all, and thanks for making me laugh. Guys, this second chunk of games, go.
I love the storylines here, okay? We just talked about the Jets, and we talked about Russell Wilson coming back. That Sean Payton gets to go back to New Orleans. That is so fun. Okay, here's the question I'm going to ask you guys off of that. Does he receive a round of applause, or does he get booing for leaving? That
round of applause. They love him. Him and Drew Brees. There was a funky thing with how he left. He got them draft capital for him leaving. It was well known for a few years that he was going to be leaving anyways. He left in a way that got them a first-round pick. They totally wasted, but got him a first-round pick, got him a second-round pick. I think that's a positive. And I think it's easy for football fans of our generation, Joey, to lose sight of how bad the Saints were, because when we were 7 and 8, that Sean Payton got there and they were pretty good that entire time. But before then, you could make a very strong argument they were the worst franchise in NFL history. And it just an absolute laughingstock, a miserable organization. And they got there right after Hurricane Katrina, which was the most devastating moment in that region's history, and lifted them, to the highest heights not only the Saints, but any New Orleans sports franchise has ever reached, before or since. I think there's a lot of love for Drew Brees, Sean Payton, and that entire Saints era. I think it'll be a standing round of applause. I'm sure there'll be some boos. I think it'll be overwhelming support.
What do you think, Bree? Do you think applause or boos for Sean Payton when he goes back to New Orleans?
That's an interesting question. I think if it were me, my mindset would be, Sean Payton, you did irreparable damage to the Saints organization, and I think a lot of the fan base can be in that mindset. Zach, you can shake your head all you want. We've had this conversation of, yes, we realize the Saints ownership did it. It wasn't necessarily Sean Payton, but do you expect the casual fan in New Orleans to understand the deviations there and not just big contract make team bad? Like, sometimes it's just the only way people think. And so I think that if I was in New Orleans, Sean Payton left the team in dire straits and kind of just disappeared because things got a little dicey, yeah, I'd probably boo Sean Payton. But I think there's been enough time in between that it's not like it just happened, because he left the league and then he came back and now he's with a different team. It'll be interesting to see what does happen. I haven't talked to a lot of Saints fans. I don't know where their head is around Sean Payton, about Denver. Like, it would be interesting to get somebody in from the beat and have a conversation with them on what that looks like. And that's obviously our plan, but I don't know. I'd probably boo him. I like the storyline though. I don't like thinking about how the AFC West is going to feel this year, because I've got question marks. I'm not so much worried about the Raiders, but that streak is driving me crazy. And then the Chargers have made strides to improve, specifically with their coaching hires. So it will be, I think, a poignant swing in the momentum for the Broncos season. But I could see them being 4-4 by the end of those 8 games. So there's my thought process with that stretch. I'm sure Zach has a rebuttal. Do you want to get into that prior to me going into the next block of 4?
Yeah, no, I just had takes I wanted to give on the chunk of 4 games and even the first chunk of 4 games. I think this whole first half of the schedule is really favorable for the Denver Broncos. I think it gets a little difficult or more difficult over these next 2 blocks, but I don't know. Looking at that first chunk, I think you've got to feel really, really good. The Seahawks were a good team last year, but they're also very flawed. They have like some serious offensive line questions, some serious questions in their front 7 on defense, really in their set all over on defense. I think you love what Mike McDonald is supposed to bring there, but what made his defense so great in Baltimore was like the complexities of it and all that they were supposed to do. I don't think he's going to be able to trot that out immediately. The Steelers, obviously, we talked about. The Bucs were like barely the best team in a pretty bad NFC South last year. I don't think it's a given that the Jets are solid. Like, yes, Rodgers is coming back, but we're talking about a 40-year-old off an Achilles tear with Nate Hackett calling the shots. It was reported this week that the Jets tried to hire someone that wasn't called an offensive coordinator, but that would ostensibly take over the offense to limit Nate Hackett's damage. Like, that's the situation they're in. The Raiders are a rough team. The Chargers, I agree with you, Bree. They're taking steps towards improving, but they're making those steps after like a pretty serious teardown that was the first step of this Jim Harbaugh regime. They were in a bad cap spot and had to jettison some parts of the offense. I think they'll be an interesting team, but this is a rebuilding squad that the Denver Broncos could totally beat. The Saints, you talked about the damage of, that Sean Payton left that regime in, and we can, debate the specifics of that. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but we will agree that that is not a great roster, the situation that they're currently in, and they have like really degenerated over the recent years. That's a very winnable game. And then the Carolina Panthers just had the number 1 overall pick, but they couldn't use it because they went to Chicago. All of these first 8 teams, I think, are incredibly beatable. I don't think the Broncos will go 8-0 by any means because they're not that level of team. But 5-3, 6-2, I wouldn't be surprised if, when all the podcasts and all the like national articles are coming out of like mid-season awards, like who's the biggest surprise team, if the Broncos are mentioned in that group. And then it goes maybe down the drain the second half of the season, but I think that first half is very favorable for the Broncos.
It's a little too early to tell, but I do want to touch on D-Brunk's question, honest question. How many of these teams are clearly worse than the Broncos team? Feels like we're looking at a bottom 5 roster this year. I would like to hear a percentage-based answer here, and then you can go into the specifics of why you think that way. But what are the chances the Broncos are even less than 500? I mean, I think the possibility and the probability there is above 60%. And I worded that very strangely, but you both are very interestingly smart individuals who can piece together what I just tried to pull from you.
On the season, or in the
I want to say in the first 8 games, since that's what we're talking about, because it's not like we're seeing anyone who's necessarily making me quake in my boots, but I said that last year and we saw the results of this. And so I think D-Bronk's honest question is, in the state of what this roster is currently in, which is a rebuild, how does this feel to you through the first 8 games?
I think the Broncos have a puncher's chance in multiple of these, but I think the one that I can clearly say is worse. It's only one, and I would say the Carolina Panthers probably have a worse roster than the Broncos. But that's really the only team that I can confidently say on paper looks worse than the Broncos. I think the Raiders are right there with Aiden O'Connell at quarterback working the helm. But I mean, a lot of my Bo Nix stuff is just hope and thinking that Sean Payton is a good quarterback evaluator. So who knows? But the only team that I can confidently say that about is the Panthers.
I fully agree. I think that's the only one. I think my counter would be, how many do we feel are definitely better than the Denver Broncos? Like, I think Baker could easily regress for the Bucs this year. And again, they were the best. They were 9-8 in a very bad NFC South a season ago. Like, they were a nice story and they outperformed expectations, but I also don't think they were a good team. I think last year those two teams could have lined up and the Broncos could have beaten them. And again, I think they look like one of the NFL's bigger regression candidates this year. I don't know the team.
They do have a better roster on paper. Like, I even if Baker Mayfield regressed, I would still confidently say on paper the Buccaneers roster looks better than the Broncos.
Would you say they're clearly better? Like, in the same, I'd say the Saints roster might look worse, or I'd say, like you said about the Raiders roster might look worse, but I'm also not confident that the Raiders are going to be a worse team than the Broncos this year. The only outcome out of those first 8, or like I think the clearest disparity is between the Broncos and the Panthers. Maybe maybe I'm giving too much credit to the Broncos coaching. But I think they won way more games than a team of their talent level should have won a season ago. I think this year will be similar in some sense. I don't see the team in that first 8 that they're clearly worse than. I'd say the Seahawks, but that's it to me. I think the rest, and to me, it has more to do with, I think any of those other teams could like be picking top 10.
Is it the Jets defense that props them up there? Or is that the assumption that Aaron Rodgers is good to go and will not be less than like 70% of his former stature? Because I think giving the Jets that much credence is maybe shocking me, but I am a bit of a hater. So
yeah, I would not bet on the Jets doing it. I'm with you. I think, you got Rodgers off an Achilles at age 40. He also tried to like rush back from it. That's easy to forget about now, but
did he really, or was that more talk than anything? I wonder, did he go above and beyond in his rehabilitation efforts, or was he just eating a bunch of mushrooms and saying shit?
What's above and beyond when you think that like dolphin sex sounds is the cure? You could think you're going above and beyond, but you're actually doing nothing if that's your belief system. So I think that's a valid question. I do think, though, that Rodgers tried to do it. I think at the end, it was definitely some like narrative gaming in the sense that it was like, oh, he's brought back, but he's just not going to play. But that's because we're eliminated. He could so play right now, but we just don't want him to. I think some narrative gaming. I do think, though, just knowing what we know about Rodgers and at least the sourcing I've heard over the past year or so, it sounds like proving the medical community wrong on his Achilles diagnosis was a motivating factor for him. And I do think, I don't know what he did. I think it was definitely some alternative healing methods, but I do think he invested a fair deal into trying to come back early. And either way, even if he didn't, even if it's a totally normal Achilles, we're talking about a 40-year-old off an Achilles being coached by Nate Hackett with some serious questions on the offensive line still. I think that's enough to cast some doubt over what they're going to be this year.
So I do want to say this, like the initial question, and then we can move on right after this. Sorry, guys. I feel like I'm dragging this out, but it was just like, feels like we're a bottom 5 roster. Like just for the Bucs, for example, I'll throw that out there. I think there is maybe some coaching going into that evaluation of what the Broncos might look like, because I'm just like looking at the Bucs roster, and if you read some of these players, it's hard to find a player the Broncos can top some of their guys. Like they have Patrick Surtain, but I mean, they have Mike Evans, they have Vita Vea, they have Levante David still, they still haven't Winfield Jr., they still have these players, and it's like, yes, I could see the Broncos go out there and beat them, but I think a lot of that would just be because of coaching and stuff like that. I don't think their rosters are very much comparable even, and I don't think the Bucs roster is all that great. I just don't think the Broncos roster is very good at all. Like, if I'm being honest with you guys, I can like, who's our second best player on the Broncos right now?
Quinn Miners.
Like that's he is in a tier of guys on the Bucs that they have like 4 or 5 guys in that Quinn Miners
but
tier.
They are a very top heavy roster. Like they definitely do have more star power, but that roster does have questions behind it. Overall, though, I would agree with you.
We have depth concerns too.
If we're just looking at the talent of the roster, yes, I agree with you. I think all of those first 4 teams, I would generally agree with you. The Steelers being the closest one there. That said, I think all of those next 4 teams, Raiders, Chargers, Saints, Panthers, you can very easily make an argument that their rosters are some of the bottom 5 in the NFL. And that's the thing. I don't really disagree with you that much on the Broncos roster. I think this first group of opponents, very bad rosters for them, or at least those opponents 5 through 8, I think are bad rosters. And then I think those first 4, wow, I can't make an argument that they're bottom 5 rosters. I also wouldn't make an argument that any of those are top 10 rosters. So yes, I agree, but I do think that first hunk 8 is still really flawed, but we can get out of there. I generally agree with you, Joey.
I'm going to abandon ship on the first 8 games. We're going to move on to the next slate, which runs back-to-back away games, the Ravens and the Chiefs. First time the Broncos will be meeting them, which means it's another game right around the corner. I do love, though, that this run of games for division rivals in the AFC West seems to be spaced out more appropriately and encompasses both the first and the second half of the schedule, because last year and the year prior to were a little bit funky. But back to my previous point, Ravens, Chiefs, Falcons, and then Raiders for the second and final time, which looks like it will be in Vegas. That chunk of games could be super interesting. Who's the starting quarterback for week 11 and not for the Broncos? Sorry, for the Falcons.
I think it's Kirk Cousins for a while. I think they're really leaning into like the Jordan Love idea. I don't think they can bench Kirk Cousins yet. They gave him $100 million guaranteed. It wouldn't be as bad as Russ, but it would be a little Russy if they were to bench him after year 1 there, or not even through year 1. So I think it's got to be Kirk this year, though. Some of what we just said about Aaron Rodgers rings true here. We're talking about, I think he's 36, 37, off an Achilles. Like that's, and his Achilles was later in the season, of course. So who knows what that's going to look like. I think that's a point. The thing that worries me about this stretch, and I stand by what I said about the first 8, I think after those first 8 games, the next 5 games could be a really rude awakening for Broncos country. If what I said is right, and maybe they are a 5-3 or a 6-2 team, and they are a pleasant surprise of the first half of the season, I think it's a bucket of cold water to get the Ravens on the road, the Chiefs on the road, a Falcons team that it's easy to view as bad now, but they are going all in on trying to win now. Maybe that strategy doesn't work for them, or that gamble doesn't pay off. but they're trying to make the playoffs this season and probably win some playoff games. And then you get the Raiders. That's an easy one. But then you get the Browns, who's also absolutely trying to compete for a playoff spot. They're trying to compete for the Super Bowls, given their Deshaun Watson gamble. And again, I think all four of those teams have a realistic shot at the playoffs. So this is the stretch of the schedule that really worries me. I think this could be brutal.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the teams, Falcons should be a lot better with Kirk Cousins. We know the Ravens. We know the Chiefs. We know the Browns. those are going to be good football teams. They're just going to be really good football teams. I think. I mean, I'm interested to hear, and we'll get to this on a later date, what your guys' predictions are on the season, as far as record-wise. But it's hard for me to imagine many wins during this period right here. Like Zach said, if you are going to get them, it seems like you're going to have to get them earlier. Like, because during this little period, it's tough sledding. Unless you think the Broncos are a legitimate playoff threat, I just don't see a lot of good opponents here for them. I just don't. I mean, I hope we go out there and beat the Chiefs again. That'd be fun.
It would be fun. And I think that we're missing a point, and Samuel Castro is what's making me go down this road, because he's always so positive and optimistic. He said, I think the Broncos could be sneaky good. Listen, Sean Payton, the Petter Walton group, and right now the current iteration of the Denver Broncos has what we would basically liken to saging the organization of old energy, bad energy, loose ends, shadows of the past. And right now it is a completely different team heading in a completely different direction than they were the last decade. And I think we can all agree there that there has been lights and shining of all of those things. Football's a momentum game. Games go in a direction that you can't hardly anticipate. And the better team on paper, or the better team throughout the season, isn't necessarily the only one that walks away with a win. So I could absolutely see this new state of the Broncos performing better than anticipated, or maybe better than they are on paper. So Samuel Castro, thank you for that message. I do think the Broncos could be sneaky successful. As far as good goes, though, that's a little subjective, and I don't buy into good, bad, right, or wrong. So I wanted to point that out. And then Dennis Reisman wanted to know how many 11 a.m. starts there are. And so I'm going to quickly count out loud. 3, 4. So 4 11 a.m. games, and then the rest are afternoons when you get out of the primetime spot. So it's a good mixture. I don't hate it. But you guys, I want to hop into the next 4, which includes one of the latest bye weeks that I have seen for the Broncos. Let's start it off here with a home game against the Browns, bye week, the Colts, and then the Chargers. We can actually finish out the rest of the schedule. I don't want to hunk the last 2 off. The Bengals is super late. I'm looking forward to that game. And then we're ending with the Chiefs. I'm kind of glad it's not the Raiders this season, guys. Ending with the Chiefs usually means that the Broncos have an opportunity to beat them. Is this a case in which the Broncos beat the Chiefs to end this season and continue that's the beaten streak? How are you feeling about this, Zach? What stands out to you the most? And is a week 14 bye a good thing or a bad thing for the often injured Denver Broncos?
I'd say bad. I mean, this is got to be one of the latest, if not the latest, buys that any of these teams have. So that's got to be not good. I think it's a good thing maybe if you're a team like the Chiefs or I don't know, the Bengals or the Eagles, where you are expecting to play deep into January. So you're like week 10 or whatever isn't the middle point of your season. The middle point of your season would be closer to week 12, week 13, week 14. So getting the extra rest then might be favorable. That's not the position the Broncos are in, though. Though I do agree that I think they could be sneaky good. I think there's a pretty clear path to it. Yes, they've lost some pieces on defense, but down the stretch last year, after week 5, which is the turning point that everyone has circled on defense, after week 5, they were 12th in defensive success rate, which is, taking the turnovers out of it. That means like just down to down. They were a pretty steady defense, not quite top 10, but just outside of there. And then their offense, the first, I talked about how I think kind of Russell Wilson made it collapse down the stretch because they became so predictable. The first 12 weeks of the season, their offense was the 15th best unit in the league in terms of EPA per play. So I do think there's a chance that, and I wouldn't bet on it, I do think that this is more like a 7-10, 6-11 team. But I wouldn't, especially looking at the schedule, which I do think is generally pretty favorable, I wouldn't be surprised if they have like a 9-8 surprisingly decent season, because I think, again, as flawed as last year's Broncos team was, when you look at like how the defense and offense ranked out relative to the rest of the league, they were still okay units. And I wouldn't be surprised if another year like the Payton era, they're a little bit better. That final stretch, though, as for that, I think it could be a strong close to the season for the Broncos. You talked about potentially beating the Chiefs. I think that's absolutely on the table since the NFL has gone to this new playoff format. We've seen more teams sitting starters in week 17, or I guess week 18, just because of how the math works out. So I think there's a great chance the Chiefs are resting starters for that game. Which of course aids the Broncos' chances of winning it. They could also win it without the Chiefs resting starters, but they're resting guys. That'll be helpful. The Colts are a rebuilding team. I'm excited about Anthony Richardson, but they're not there yet. They've still got a ways to go. And then the Chargers, like I said, are a rebuilding team. I think I wouldn't bet on it, but I think the Broncos could go 3-1 down that final 4-game stretch. I think the middle chunk of the schedule is very brutal, but I think the opening and the close of it are pretty manageable.
So here's my thing, though, because you mentioned you think the Broncos could shock and be not that bad this year. They could be good. I just wonder. I honestly kind of disagree. I think it would take Bo Nix playing at a really good level. I don't see him matching Russell Wilson's production in year one, or if he does, it would be like right there. That would be a solid rookie season for Bo Nix, honestly. If he came in as a rookie and played like Russell Wilson did last year, that'd be solid, right? I don't think this Broncos roster is all that much better than it was last year. Like, we're talking about Justin Simmons being gone. We're talking about some like good players being off the football team. And we've had conversations on this podcast about, hey, well, the Broncos could just pass on quarterback and, maybe they go get the first pick next year. So what's the drastic change? What happened from then to here where the Broncos got better, I guess would be my question, or where they got substantially better, not literally conversations of maybe the Broncos could get the first pick to maybe the Broncos go out and win 8 games. That's a stark difference. So I'm just trying to get your answer on that one.
I think that range has always existed, save for the top end of it. I think that range for them bottoming out and picking number 1 is still very much on the table. Bo Nix, while I think is probably a fine quarterback, for me the questions are more about upside. I think he'll be fine. At the least, there's a chance he's not. There's a chance he's really bad. That will, and again, I don't think the roster is that great. Like, that in and of itself will lead to this team losing a lot of games. Seeing the schedule spelled out in front of me and looking at these teams that just personally I already had a lot of questions about, I think is another factor. But the biggest for me is absolutely drafting Bo Nix. I stand by all my Bo Nix takes, but I do think he can adequately run the offense, which
as a rookie.
Which is something I think more so than Russell Wilson. I really think, and I went on my rant before, I think Russell Wilson was the biggest problem with the offense last year by a very wide margin. And I think the same will ring true in Pittsburgh this year. I think he pares down what you can run as an NFL offense so severely. And then even beyond that, again, I heard some things about how his relationship was with Payton that I think was also damaging to the team. And that won't be around this year. So I think that's a benefit. I also think just the fact that you can run, I think the Broncos will be better off running a full NFL playbook at 90% the efficiency they were last year than they were last year with a super pared down playbook. Like, I think even if you take a small step back in the down to down efficiency or productivity, or even the like high ceiling moments, if that just dials down a bit, but you're able to run a more expanded playbook where defenses aren't able to just tee off on the 6 plays you're allowed to run. I think that's going to really help this team, especially down the stretch. Again, the first 12 weeks of last season, they were 15th overall in EPA per play. If you want to look at just the run game, they were 9th in rushing success rate. They were one of the league's better run teams, despite no one or everyone knowing that the Broncos just wanted to run it at you or throw it over the top with Russ. I think getting a little less predictable on offense is I think they're going to be a little better on offense, and I think the defense will be comparable to what it was down the stretch last year, minus the takeaways, which I think will land them somewhere between 10th and 20th on the defensive side. And I think they'll be around there on offense too. So I think they'll be okay.
I just think you're overrating a little bit of how much the offense will be expanded with a rookie quarterback. Like, Bo Nix is older and he should be able to pick things up faster than your average rookie quarterback, but your offense still is going to be limited. There's no doubt about it. Like, he's not coming into week 1 like a 3-year or 4-year vet in the NFL with playbook knowledge and knowing, especially in a Sean Payton, very, very, very complex, known for being complex offense. That's just something that I don't think is going to happen. We saw an improvement, Zach, from Russell Wilson from year 1 to year 2. We just saw an improvement in his audibles throughout the season went on and stuff like that. That's something I don't think Bo Nix is going to have in year 1 all the way. I don't think he's going to have the ability to go up to the line of scrimmage and dictate the offense as effectively as Russell Wilson did last year. And then even, you had to run a limited playbook with Russell Wilson. I would almost guarantee you're going to have to run somewhat of a limited playbook with Bo Nix.
I think somewhat, but in a very different way. Like, Russell Wilson couldn't run quick game. Like, Bo Nix is going to be able to run quick game. Like, there were so many things Russ couldn't do that I think provide an offense like a floor or sustainability or some like comfortability that Russ couldn't do. It was all like moonshots or nothing. Like, it was not a sustainable way to live on offense, especially, again, knowing what we know Sean Payton wants to do on offense. That overlaps very much so with Bo Nix. I think, like, yes, you'll still have some limitations because he's a rookie. But I think
truthfully, there's going to be a lot. They're not going to know the full playbook. What?
We're talking about a guy that needed 2-word plays all last year, right?
No, and I agree, but I just think with a rookie quarterback, it's like, this is common stuff in the NFL. With a rookie quarterback, your offense is going to be more predictable week to week, and they're going to get better as the season goes along. But what? No, I'm just saying there is going to be predictability to the offense. I don't think it's like, wow, look at our offense just expand and blow up now. Like, Russell Wilson did have edges on what Bo Nix is going to have, and Bo Nix is going to have edges on what Russell Wilson had this last year. I think Bo Nix has the capability of running more plays than Russell Wilson, but I don't think he's going to have the knowledge to run all of the plays.
I think he has the football IQ. I think he's going to have the football IQ to actually exceed expectations. But Joey, I think it's somewhere in the middle there where you're anticipating a better showing. You're anticipating a higher ceiling with Bo Nix. But I do think that it will be limited just because he is a rookie. We're not expecting him to come in and I like Samuel Castro's comment here as well. If the Texans can do it, why can't the Broncos do it too? Simply because they're different. They're different quarterbacks. They're different players. And I think Bo Nix's skill set and subsidies of what we're expecting him to do, I think pairs well with what Sean Payton wants to do, which is, to Zach's point, of that expectation being there is not a limitation of what Russell Wilson could or couldn't do. It's what Bo Nix is going to be expected to, and why he's the perfect person for that playbook, and will be able to build on it year over year. Zach, final thoughts?
Yeah, I think CJ Stroud is maybe the best rookie quarterback we've seen in NFL history. Like, so I'd say that's why, maybe the Broncos couldn't do it too, because you're hoping for best all-time stuff, and that's hard to replicate in consecutive seasons. That said, I think it's on the table. I guess, Joey, like, to rebut you, I agree that like rookie quarterbacks are going to be limited. I think where we disagree is I have a much lower opinion of Russ and where he was at last year. I think by the end of last season, he was a non-functional starting quarterback last year. It didn't come up during the Steelers thing. I think Justin Fields is going to beat him out for that job, maybe before week 1, and I think before October. I think Russ is just done. I don't think you can run a sustainable NFL offense with him anymore. I think it's just so predictable and so pared down, and he's borderline incompetent at running massive parts of an NFL playbook. And if you're removing the mental aspect of it, which the 2-word play call stuff points to, I don't really know what you were getting out of that. And then again, stuff that, like, I know you're in the loop on this too. I don't know if Russell Wilson's presence, or the ability to do things before the plays, was ultimately beneficial to the Broncos from what I've heard about how that relationship was transpiring. So much was bad there that I think, I felt the same way about Jarrett Stidham stepping in for the most part. I think Jarrett Stidham, I thought his ceiling was lower than Nix's, but I thought Jarrett Stidham could run it. And just by the fact he's like an actual NFL quarterback that you don't have to burn big chunks of the playbook for, the offense would take some steps forward. And I still think that with Bo Nix. And even if it's about the same, they were the 20th best offense last year. So if the defense is about the same and you end up with 10 to 20 units, you're in the middle.
I guess my whole thing is not so that you have to burn the playbook with Bo Nix. It's that you're going to be adding on to it throughout the season. Like that's just my point. Like, we're going to start at a ground zero level with rookie quarterback. When you see what's happening with the Broncos week 1, they're probably going to be, if they end up winning, it's going to be off of unpredictability at offense. And then as teams catch up, you have to hope that he's just a fast enough learner to keep adding to be able to have the wherewithal and smarts to keep adding to the playbook and stuff like that. I don't know. I just think that there is, it's not, I just want to say this. This is my main point. It's not like the Broncos just went out there and signed Kirk Cousins and now the whole playbook expands because we have this 10-year vet at quarterback who we know is going to be able to digest the playbook. He's been in multiple offenses in the NFL and everything like that. It's going to be baby steps for Bo Nix his rookie year. That's just how it's going to work for any rookie quarterback. Some are just better at executing those plays that are given to them and have a better ability to learn plays. But it is going to be baby steps. That's all.
And I agree.
Yeah.
I just think Russ was not walking. He was wheelchair bound, so I have the baby steps, still step forward.
Cool. I'm going to get us out of here, but I don't know how to do it smoothly. Quickly, and without further elaboration, you just get to name the team. Who's the surprise shocker that the Broncos beat on this schedule?
The Chiefs. 1 game.
Bengals.
Nice. Joe Burrow is washed. Hashtag let's make Zach cry. Get yourself entered into the giveaway here for Let's Talk Broncos on the search for 2,000 subscribers here on YouTube. Kathy already did her part by going and posting over on Twitter and tagging us and sharing the stream. Shouts out to her again for the super chat. We'll do a breakdown of our 2 early season predictions later on, but she said she's a Bo fan, 11-6 ceiling. 3 a.m. where she's at. She's got the type of tenacity and dedication that I like to see. So thank you, Kathy, for your donation, your support, and your prediction. We'll break down here on Let's Talk Broncos as the season approaches. We'll give you a rundown of how we think the schedule is going to break itself down. But yeah, I'm also going with the Chiefs here on this schedule. They got to drop off eventually. Alrighty, guys. Tune in tomorrow for the Thursday show. Joey and Frankie will be on, and then we'll be back. No Joey and Frankie. Never mind.
Let's see.
Maybe iffy, 50-50. Every time I don't mention it, I'm an asshole. And then every time I do, I'm also an asshole. That's just the way it goes. We'll be back on Monday, break it down for you again. I'm sure there's going to be lots of news and some more notes coming in for you all. Any other parting words from you two gentlemen?
Shout out, Let's Talk Broncos. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Go Broncos. That's all.
Yeah. Shout out Broncos. Let's hope this season's nice.
Nice. All right. Peace out. Bye.